Welcome back to the Top Notch Documentaries YouTube channel. In today's video, I shall be covering the bank robbers that the FBI dubbed the Black Cat Bandits. I hope you enjoy. With 9 banks to their record, the Black Cat Bandits perpetrated a 2-month robbery spree beginning in January 2015. It was January 2nd when a bandit entered the Bank of America in McLean, Virginia. He wore a black coat, gloves, sunglasses and a hat. He had on a fake beard. Brandishing a pistol, the bandit commanded tellers to the ground and stole $28,314. Immediately, a suspect characteristics profile was noted. The suspect was around age 50, about 5'10" and 170 pounds. The brazen broad light robbery received plenty of attention. Who was this robber? It wouldn't be long before another bank would be hit. On January 16th, a BB&T bank would be the next target. A similar disguise was worn. This time, however, there were 2 bandits at the scene. This time, the take was average, significantly lower than the first robbery. $5,847.48 was taken. One suspect was white, around 30 to 40 years old, 5'11" to 6 foot, and around 200 to 230 pounds. The other suspect was dressed the same, but his ethnicity was unknown. Law enforcement didn't have time to process what was happening. Another bank was taken over 4 days later. Bank of America branch in Vienna, Virginia was taken over. The MO was the exact same. Enter the bank and force everyone to the floor. The take was $47,491 this time. Unexpectedly for the bandits, a die pack explosion destroyed $47,330 in the bank parking lot. The bandits were on a roll. As the money piled up, the authorities raced to gain as much information and insight into who they were dealing with. Still, it was tricky given their hidden faces and organised raids. It was theorised that the Black Cat Bandits had some level of military or police training. 10 days later, the Essex Bank in Arnold, Maryland would be raided. 2 white males with dark disguises held up the bank. "Give me 50s, 100s. From the second drawer," one of the bandits yelled. Just $6,820 was stolen this time. A tracking device embedded in the money refused to work. Again the robbers escaped. The month ended with little leads to the culprits. Nobody apprehended, and it was only a matter of time before the authorities knew that they would strike again. Their next bank would be on February 5th. One of the bandits would take over a Suntrust Bank branch in Waldorf, Maryland. The original disguise was employed for this takeover robbery. Everyone jumped to the floor as the bandit fled with $19,381. Where was the other bandit? Had the other one split and quit robbing alongside? How many of them were there? Authorities would be left puzzled as to the answers. February 18th, and 2 bandits appeared at another BB&T bank branch in Virginia. Black stocking caps shielded their faces as they took the smallest amount yet, just $2,509. Not content of the minimal amount, they robbed a Wells Fargo bank branch in Sterling, Virginia that same day. The small take that same day probably led to a burning desire for more money. They took $27,503 in this robbery. As time progressed, the bank robbers became much more emboldened. As the money piled up, so did their aggression. They pushed terrified customers to the floor who didn't react quick enough. Also, in one of the robberies, one of the bandits aimed a pistol at a customer's head. It was getting much more dangerous during the robberies. Someone was bound to eventually get injured, or worse. Another month over and the bandits were still at it, still free, and roaming different states, scoping out banks, and then robbing them with military precision. On March 2nd, another Wells Fargo bank branch would be raided. The repetitive cycle of events played out exactly in the bandits' favour, as before. Two suspects, one being a black male this time, 6 foot, 210 to 220 pounds, 30 to 36 years old, along with one of the previous bandits, the late 50s one. Both hurried out of the bank with $35,061. Capital of the United States was the last to be hit. On March 13th it would go into effect. A Wells Fargo branch in Washington, D.C. was occupied by one of the bandits. $9,178 was withdrawn forcefully as the suspect threatened to kill a customer if the money wasn't handed over. He yelled this out 3 times. The bandit dashed away from the scene and hopped into the passenger side of a waiting 2014 black Chevrolet Suburban. Now at 9 successful takeovers, the bandits must have been adamant that they wouldn't be captured. Would they retire from their audacious bank robbery spree and retire to Florida? Well, no. It appeared that law enforcement were finally catching up with them. The FBI had been holding a $30,000 reward for information by this point, but it wouldn't be necessary. At the March 2nd robbery, footprints from the bandits were uncovered, frozen solid in the snowy conditions as they had made their escape. As a forensic team built up evidence, a major breakthrough was made. All it took was a police officer's description of the getaway car from the March 13th robbery, and only half an hour after that same robbery, law enforcement spotted the car in an apartment complex. Only a 25-minute drive from the bank, Dowett Hall, the driver and the passenger, Thomas George, exited the vehicle and went into the apartment block. George would then return to the vehicle not long after, at which point he was detained. It wasn't to be a guns blazing final shootout, which most would have expected. Both men were taken into custody. George being found to have $3,950 in his pocket. The same police officer from the bank scene determined it to be the vehicle. A search warrant was executed, and authorities stormed the apartment where the suspect had just been. A black handgun was confiscated, along with the 2014 black Chevrolet Suburban. Whether trying to seek redemption or just scared, Thomas George, the man seen leaving the bank, waived his rights and ended up spilling the beans on the March 13th robbery. Later on, as part of his plea deal, he confessed to the other 8 robberies. Dowett Hall ended up doing the same. On running a background check on Thomas George, it was revealed that he had been convicted for 3 separate bank robberies from the years 1988 to 1999. In November 2013, he had been set free from federal prison, only to resume committing bank robberies a few years later. Both men had had long criminal careers. Thomas George had been a Vietnam veteran, with his family explaining that he was injured during the war. Shrapnel had become stuck in his back, and as a result, he had won a Purple Heart reward, attained by being wounded by the enemy, having put himself in the line of fire. Apparently, he struggled deeply with substance abuse and began self-medicating. This is a common issue for Army veterans returning home with PTSD and multiple injuries. With little to no support structure, they end up self-medicating, resulting in substance abuse. This was put forth as a likely motive for the robberies. He never had a life outside of bars, his family admitted. This excuse didn't resonate well with the judge. After all, many troops return home and don't rob banks. Thomas George at the time, aged 65, ended up being given 32 years total. Plus, he was made to pay restitution of roughly the total combined amount for all the money stolen, this being $182,104.48. His past convictions didn't support him in getting the lowest sentence. 32 years is a long time of incarceration. For only a couple months of robberies, years are added on, along with the full amount stolen in restitution. Add to this his time already spent incarcerated, and you realise how little was gained from the bank robbery spree. George's motive is interesting, but not super convincing. The violent energy that the bandits exhibited toward both customers and the bank staff would all be used against them in court. I understand that plenty of veterans suffer from PTSD and drug abuse, but using it to justify violent crime just doesn't work. At the time of recording, I couldn't find any relevant updates on the status of Dowett Hall or if any further suspects have been caught. The FBI believe that there are at least 3. What do you make of the Black Cat Bandits? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching.